Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door. A game that I watched one of my favorite Let's Players play growing up. It was a game I've always wanted to play. Even the original, the OG, Paper Mario on the N64. But that's the problem. I never owned an N64 and I never owned a GameCube, which the Thousand-Year Door was on. So my excitement when a remake of this game came out, I was genuinely excited. I didn't hear any good thing. I heard a lot of negative things about other Paper Mario games, such as Sticker Star, Color Splash, and even the Army King. I've heard pretty negative things about those games, so I never bothered to play those. And one other thing, I'm obviously very well aware of the original Paper Mario trilogy, like Paper Mario, Thousand-Year Door, and Super Paper Mario. And so, when I finally got my hands on Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door on the Nintendo Switch, I was genuinely excited to play this game. So, yesterday, I have now finished Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door. Not to 100% completion, because I am not a 100% completionist. To me, completing the game is finishing every single chapter. So, I'm here to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door, and give you guys a bit of story context about the game. And I'll kind of go by chapter, who the bosses are, the main villains, and onwards. Not gonna bore you all to death not gonna bore you to death with how long everything is. So, the game opens up with a story about a cataclysm that destroyed a certain town, and then eventually a new town by the name of Rogueport eventually got built. Princess Peach wandered in to Rogueport because I guess she was invited to go there. She bought a mysterious map from a merchant, and that basically kickstarts the entire game. Mario goes to Rogueport and runs into a Goomba, a lady Goomba named Goombella, being attacked by these X-Knots and their co-leader Lord Crump. And I love Lord Crump's cry. His laugh is buh 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 buh. His laugh is pretty hilarious. And no, there is no voice acting, unfortunately. It's just the text. That's just what I get when I read the text. So, you beat the Crumpet Man, and then from there the prologue continues on. You have the treasure map to unlock to open the Thousand-Year Door. You got to gather all the crystal stars, and gathering all the crystal stars will allow you to open the Thousand-Year Door, because that's the name of the game. So, after learning a little bit, we end the prologue by going into Chapter 1, Hooktail's Castle. The basics of this game is all about action commands. That's really the basis of this game. You're learning about action commands. And the one thing I like is that they have a tutorial Toad in the remakes. They didn't do this in the original. So for someone like me who has never played this game before, it's actually really cool they included a tutorial practice Toad, so that way you can practice your button commands. And I'll tell you this, I am really bad. I was really bad at it, and especially at Super Guards. when they teach you about super guards, super guarding, my god, super guarding is only for experts, and I am no expert, so I didn't bother super guarding. But basically, when I got to the final boss, I kind of learned the hard way that, yeah, I need to master super guarding. I need to eventually get the hang of it. But I'll get to that in due time. And also, throughout this game, you have a partner, which basically the little Goomba friend we ended up saving becomes an ally, Goomba Bella. And she basically is your catalog where she can teach you about enemies and their HP. Mind you, I'll give you guys a little bit of hints if you don't feel like having Goombella out to just tattle every single enemy in the entire game. Just get enough star pieces. Go around, collect star pieces. Collect enough star pieces so you can go to a character that gives you badges for star pieces. And make sure you get the Peekaboo badge, because the Peekaboo badge is the most useful out of them all, because, obviously, it'll give you all the health bar of all the enemies. So we go through chapter 1, and we encounter a giant dragon flying over our heads, and my apologies right now with my ears. My ears are kind of, acting up right now. Ugh. We end up going to a place called Petal Mellow Fields. I can't remember the name, but you guys will know. And if you played the game, you'll know. And then we head to a place called Petalburg. Ripping off Pokemon, are you, Paper Mario, the 1000-Year Duel? Nice. And they rip off Pokemon even more by telling Mario to open up the way to Hooktail's castle. You need to collect a Sunstone and a Moonstone. Thanks again for ripping off Pokemon. And I guess Paper Mario is kind of like Pokemon in a way, because it's a turn-based game, but instead you gotta, action command to do the attacks. So, chapter 1 is pretty short. We get a new ally named Koops, the Koopa Trooper, along the way. And we start unlocking shine sprites. We start finding shine sprites. And these shine sprites are going to help us boost out the attack power of our partners, and they will be able to gain more health along the way. So again, I'm not going to go over every single detail. I just need to point out the main things before people get a bit upset at me. So, after going through Hooktail's castle and getting lost a couple of times and figuring out some of the puzzles, there's a weakness to Hooktail, and you got to get a badge that gives him a specific weakness. So, a specific weakness, because later on in the game you find out, once you get to chapter 8, you later find out that Hooktail was a girl, because there's another Hooktail-like dragon telling you that you killed his precious sister. So yeah, my mistake. Hooktail is a girl. I probably just got a lot of angry comments by accidentally calling Hooktail a he. Anyway, after defeating her, you get the Crystal Star, and you save Koops' dad. And you also saved Koops' dad, and you got a Crystal Star! Getting the first Crystal Star, and chapter 1 ends as, considering it's the first chapter, it's not too long, and it's not too hard. Chapter 2, however, it was probably one of the more boring chapters, and I didn't really enjoy it all that much, and that is basically going through Boggly Woods to encounter these little creatures called Punies. you unlock possibly the worst ally in the game, and that is Flurry. I don't really consider her the... I didn't bother using her. I only used her for the chapter. But even then, I still preferred using Koops at the time, because Koops was just better well suited. So, after navigating my way around the whole puny area, and yeah, the punies are pretty annoying. The punies were pretty annoying and were pretty annoying and all that. But overall, this is where I experienced my first game over. And I will say, and I do find, and I am pretty embarrassed by this, I ended up losing to Lord Crump in Chapter 2 when he unleashed the Magnus Von Grapple. Now, some of you may be wondering, how in the world did you die to Magnus Von Grapple, Patrick? He is one of the easiest bosses in the game. Well, yes, it is true, he is pathetically easy. The reason is because A, I didn't have the Peekaboo badge at the time, because I didn't know how much health he had, and 2, I was messing up my action commands really, really poorly. Because when you unlock the power bounce, it's very easy to misjudge where Mario is jumping to land on an enemy, especially if they're big enemies. And it's very, very easy to misjudge Mario's jumping, and the timing was a bit stricter. I guess the timing is either a bit stricter, but... And also, again, I wasn't very good at guarding my opponent's attacks either. So, technically, Magnus Von Grapple only able to game over me because I was playing really, really poorly. But, I was able to beat him the second time. I was able to teach him a lesson the second time, and yeah, from that point on, I kind of learned my lesson. To get better at my guarding, and also my action commands. So that ends Chapter 2. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy this chapter. You just basically gotta save the punies. That's all you're doing from the X-Knots, and yeah, I didn't really enjoy that chapter. I thought it was really, really tedious. So then we move on to my favorite chapter, Chapter 3. Paper Mario becomes WWE. That's not the name of it, but that's what I know. That's not the name of it, but that's what I'm going to be calling it, because that's what Chapter 3 is. Basically, Paper Mario becoming a professional wrestler, because Chapter 3 ends you in a arena where you meet a character named Rockhawk, and he basically gives off a lot of wrestling quotes, and he's got a wrestling belt around his waist that kind of looks like that has a crystal star on it. So basically, at the time, you and your characters felt like, well, okay, we gotta beat Rockhawk to get the crystal star. And then later you unlock a new partner, a new ally, and that is a Yoshi. That eventually hatches from a little egg. And the Yoshi just always calls Mario by the wrestling character name that he is given when he enters the Glitz Pit, which is the name of the facility, the Glitz Pit. And Mario was given the name The Great Gonzalez! The Great Gonzalez. So yeah, so Yoshi just always called Mario Gonzalez throughout the entire adventure. If you have him with you through the entire adventure, he just always calls you Gonzalez and not Mario. By the end of the game, he does acknowledge him as Mario, but he says that you will always be Gonzalez to me. You will always be Gonzalez to me because I was born in the Glitz Pit. So after dealing with Rockhawk and gaining his title, you gotta do so many battles. Like, there's so many battles. Like, I think it's 20 battles that you gotta do to eventually get to Rockhawk. It's pretty tedious. It can be kind of tedious and boring. Some people might find it tedious and boring, but I didn't mind. I thought it was fun. I thought the Glitz Pit stuff was fun. So after trouncing Rockhawk and getting his title, And you start eventually and as you're climbing up the ranks, you start learning about the weird mysteries of what's going on at the Glitz Pit. Missing fighters have gone missing. Secret areas that you can open up, and there's a young toad, lady toad named Julene spying on you, and all that. Eventually, you find out that the person behind the missing fighters was none other than Vince McMahon himself. No, I'm just kidding. His name is Grubber, the boss, the CEO, the boss man. The boss man of the Glitz Pit. I guess you can kind of consider him the Vince McMahon of the Glitz Pit, considering that he doesn't give a shit about his fighters, because he's pretty much taking their energy to keep him stronger. He ends up revealing that he's taking energy of fighters to keep him young. So then, he unleashes his transformation state, called Macho Grubber, on you, and you are able to defeat him. You defeat him, you take him out, you earn your Crystal Star, you get your Crystal Star! And you also end up saving, Julene's younger brother, Prince Mush. I enjoyed Chapter 3. If you could replay chapters, if there was a way to replay chapters, I would definitely do that, because that was a good chapter. Definitely enjoyed that. Chapter 4 sees us go through Twilight Town. No, not that Twilight. No, not that Twilight. And then you basically see the whole civilians there turning into pigs. Yes, they're being transformed into pigs by the sound of the bell going off. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, that was interesting. Anywho, so you eventually go all the way to the creepy steeple. And also along the way, you're unlocking. I should have mentioned this. Also along the way, you're unlocking these weird curses, where these cursed chests, change you into certain abilities, like a paper plane, a small rolly thing, a boat, and they'll make you turn on your side, and they also make you turn on your side. I will tell you this, I hate the plane. The plane was the one I really had the least trouble, the one I had the most trouble with. Sure, I'm reading the dialogue to understand what I'm doing, but but man, I was really bad with the plane. I did at least got the hang of it by the end, at least. But yeah, it was the most annoying and frustrating experiences I had with the plane. It was definitely the plane. But yeah, after you run into a bunch of ghosts, you beat them, and then eventually you encounter the boss of the area, a mysterious cloaked figure named Dupless. You beat him. He ends up stealing your identity, so you end up becoming a ghost. You run into Vivian, who's a part of the three Shadow Sisters, which you end up fighting them in Chapter 2, Marilyn and Beldam. But then Vivian eventually does a face turn and joins your side. She ends up joining your side because Mario was being nice to her, because Beldam was always being rude to her. So she basically pulls a face turn here. She helps you get your identity back. Mario gets his identity back, and he gets his Crystal Star to end Chapter 4. Chapter 4 was alright. Not my favourite, but it was alright. But the one thing I will say they did right with this chapter, because one of the complaints that I heard a lot of people say about Chapter 4 was the endless amount of backtracking that you had to do in that chapter. But in the remake, they fixed the backtracking. They fixed the backtracking by adding a pipe from Twilight Town to Creepy Steeple, so you don't have to constantly backtrack. So that was pretty cool. So that was pretty cool, I'm not going to lie. Next up is another one chapter I consider to be a fan favorite of mine, and that is Chapter 5! This is where we go to the Keyhole Key to find another crystal star. We basically getting traveled along with possibly one of the more annoying characters of the game, and that is Flavio. He is a coward. He is a coward. He is a coward. That's really all I can really say about him. So in Chapter 5, we unlock our final party member, and that is an old bomb man named Bobbery. And the reason why I said that in quotations, because there's technically one more party member you can obtain, but she's optional. And you might not even know you could get her unless you find out maybe like on a video or something. So we're investigating this island. We investigate this island. And yeah, some of the puzzles I got a little bit confused with. I got a little bit confused with some of the puzzles, but I was able to make my way through and eventually we get another curse which turns us into a boat, which, you know, obviously isn't too bad. But we then battle one of my favorite bosses in the game, that is Cortez. I don't know why, the name Cortez just sounds really good. And he also has that, and he's also got that Mexican accent, calling you amigo and stuff like that. So, he's also an evil cursed, he's an evil rotten pirate, because, you know, pirates are always evil in their treasure. So after you defeat Cortez, he has 3 different phases. But after dealing with Cortez, you get his crystal star that he has no problem handing over to you. Then eventually one of your crewmates turns on you and is revealed to be none other than Lord Crump. Oh man, how do we fall for that? Eventually we go back to ask Cortez, and we beg Cortez if we could use his ship, but he's having none of it. He doesn't want to let us use his ship, but Flavio has something that will let him use it, and this is where Cortez gets angry, threatens to kill him for stealing something that belonged to him. But Cortez agreed but Flavio agreed to give back the stone gem that pilots his ship if he agrees to let them use it, which he does eventually comply. So Cortez sort of goes to a face turn as well, because he kind of becomes an ally to you at the end of the chapter. So I guess, sort of a face turn. Sort of a face turn there for Cortez. So you beat Lord Crump, and this is where I delivered my very first Super Guard. Because Super Guards, I have been failing miserably at. I have not been able to hit a Super Guard. But I was able to hit my first Super Guard. There's an attack where Lord Crump will jump on a giant ball of X-Knots and try to bowl you over like a bowling ball. And I was able to Super Guard that. I was genuinely shocked that I actually Super Guarded it. But hey, better late than never, huh? Better late than never, huh? But after beating Lord Crump, we finally finished Chapter 5. Also, one thing I should mention, throughout after the end of each chapter, you kind of have these little segments with Princess Peach and with Bowser. The Bowser ones are more funny and hilarious. I found the Bowser ones more funny and hilarious. That you're walking around town with him, and then you're kind of doing a level with him. That basically turns into Super Bowser Bros, which is really hilarious and funny. I enjoyed the Bowser stuff. I actually enjoyed the Bowser, the little Bowser stuff. The Peach ones I didn't really care all that much for, but Peach kind of runs into this computer named Tech, and Tech starts having a bit of a a computer starts having a bit of a thing for Princess Peach. Yes, a computer starts having a thing with Princess Peach. Yeah, so a computer starts having a thing for Princess Peach, but then the X-Not main bad guy, Grotus, starts catching on starting to realize that his computer is turning on him. So yeah, we basically had 3 face turns in this entire damn story. We have Cortez, who goes from a boss to basically helping you get from Rogue Port to Keyhole Key. Vivian, who was with her sisters, decides to go with you because you're more nicer than being with her sisters. And then we get a computer basically trying to help Peach escape because Tech starts realizing what Grotus, the main villain, well, so to speak, he's built as the main villain. What he's trying to do with Princess Peach. Basically, Grotus wants Princess Peach's body to use to awaken the Shadow Queen, the final boss of the entire game. So, yeah, the Peach stuff wasn't all that great, but I did enjoy the Bowser stuff. So now after Chapter 5, we move on to Chapter 6, which I found kind of boring, but I've heard a lot of people say it's a good chapter. I've heard some people say it's a good chapter, but in my opinion, it ain't that great. You're basically on a train, basically playing detective and helping the train get to Poshley Heights. And then eventually you battle these Smorgs, these little bosses, these little weird things named Smorgs that are basically the boss of this chapter. I almost died. I almost game overed on that boss, but I was able to beat it, thankfully, because I was very concerned that I was going to game over because my timing is still And the other weird thing is that the enemies have a lot of the enemies sometimes will take slow to attack you. Sometimes they'll do the long wind up and then attack you really late, and then you gotta press it at a certain time. And there are some enemies that'll attack you so quickly that you won't have any time at all to react to what's going on. So that's kind of one of the biggest things about the game that I need to get used to, especially if I'm going to continue playing it going forward. Especially I'm going to keep playing it going forward, which I'm kind of hoping I am to keep playing it going forward because I want to get better at it. Because I want to get better at it. Yeah, so after beating Chapter 6, you make it to Poshley Heights, and you get your 6th Crystal Star. Chapter 7, you basically go to the far outpost to unleash a cannon to go to the moon. But you need to find General White and Gold Bomb. And this was another one of those missions where the original kind of had this really annoying backtracking sequence where you had to go all the way from Far Outpost all the way to Poshley Heights and yada yada yada. It's a real long drag, but they added fast travel points. They added fast travel points in the remake, where in the sewer areas at Rogueport, there's these pipes that'll fast travel you to certain areas. So the backtracking is not as annoying. It's not as annoying, but it still can be a little bit annoying. So after finding Gold Bob and General White, you get shot straight to the moon to get to the next star. To get to the next star. And then we get a really good theme song, the X-Not Fortress. You basically end up at the X-Not Fortress to find the final Crystal Star. And of course, the boss is once again Lord Crump. You fight this guy so many damn times. He's like a goddamn pest, I swear to God. But, thankfully, I didn't die to him this time. I learned my lesson last time. But also, Lord Crump has this move that people said was unblockable and really hard to avoid. Basically, he basically absorbs... Like, when you're doing battles, like, you have like an audience watching you when you're doing battles. Weirdly, it's taken me until chapter 7 to mention this. But yeah, basically, Lord Crump will take some of your audience members and shoot them out of a cannon. And I was able to block a few of them. I was actually able to block a few of them to not take much damage. But hey, it was pretty cool. There's been so many times some of the bosses just basically absorb your audience to gain health back. Hooktail did it. Cortez ended up doing it as well. So, there were so many bosses that were just like, so desperate to kill your audience. Hell, even the Shadow Queen does it in the final boss to basically gain all her health back at one point. But yeah, Lord Crump was pretty easy. I didn't have a problem with him this time round. And notice how I stopped mentioning party members. Because there is one more party member you can get, but you have to know that you can. But you have to know about it, because there's a good chance most people don't know about it, and that is Miss Mouse. Throughout your adventure, a mouse lady named Miss Mouse. You encounter her throughout your adventure, and then you got to do some kind of challenge. You got to do some challenge for her. Basically, you got to go back to Hooktail's castle, find a badge that she was having a hard time finding, but then later she tells you that she did find the badge and she hid it to test you, Mario. And because you passed, she will agree to join you. So yeah, she can technically be an ally that you probably don't know about. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, so after chapter 7, we now finally talk about chapter 8, the one chapter I was fearing the most. Chapter 8, the 1,000-Year Door. This is the chapter I was most concerned about. If there was any point in the game I expected to get a game over, it was not against Lord Crump. It was not against Magnus von Grapple in Chapter 2. I expected tons of game overs when I battled the Shadow Queen. I'm not going to go over the whole puzzles in Chapter 8 because there's a lot of them. And there's several mini boss fights with Beldam and Marilyn, the Shadow Sisters. Dupless kind of joins them. Dupless ends up joining them because Vivian turned traitor on them. And you also encounter Gloomtail, who is the brother of Hooktail. So that's really all the other bosses. But then you eventually face off against Grotus. Now Grotus, he's been built up as the penultimate boss throughout the entire game. And the fact that he only had 50 HP really made me go, this guy is supposed to be the main villain of this entire game, but he's like weaker than basically most of the bosses. Gloomtail was more stronger than him. He had 80 HP. But yeah, Grotus was pretty easy because Vivian has like this move where she can attack all enemies, which is really cool. But then after you beat Grotus, you also battle Bowser soon after. There's actually 2 times you battle Bowser. You battle Bowser once when he gets into the Glitz Pit, and then you battle him here at the 1,000-Year Door. You beat Bowser, he wasn't too terrible. He was actually not that difficult. I was kind of expecting him to, but he wasn't too bad. But and also, and as I mentioned already throughout the entire adventure, you can get badges. You can unlock certain badges to help you, and you gotta also have BP to use these badges. I didn't invest a lot in BP, so maybe that could have possibly been one of the reasons why I failed, that I wasn't doing very well against the Shadow Queen. But I was really more focusing on getting a lot of HP and a lot of FP, so then that way I can keep hitting really hard, which that's exactly what I ended up doing. I ended up using Power Lift to boost my attack power and my defenses to basically hit a lot of damage. To hit a lot of damage on the bosses, which that comes in handy. And there's like a power rush badge that pluses your attack power, which is even better. There's also a badge called Quick Change, because you lose your turn if you decide to switch between Mario and his partner, which is kind of annoying. But the quick change badge prevents that from happening. So that made some battles a bit more easier. That made some battles a bit more easier. But the Shadow Queen herself, she destroyed me. I did not game over. Though surprisingly that I did not game over, she gave me a lot of trouble. 150 HP. Well, 130, but then she got 150. She basically absorbs Princess Peach, and then you gotta beat her. I should not have beaten her. I got incredibly lucky. Like, I had a lot of Ultra Shrooms, and I should have gotten more Life Shrooms. I definitely should have gotten a lot more. I think I got, like, only 2 Life Shrooms, because the game gave me 2 Life Shrooms as I was going through the dungeon to get to the final boss. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. I nearly lost all my party members. I nearly lost all of them. Miss Mouse was the last person I had left with me. The last party member I had with me. And I somehow overcame all the odds and defeated the Shadow Queen, ending the game and beating it. Man, I could not believe that I beat her. And the one big major problem with Mario... Now, because of that one game over I had against Magnus von Grapple, I learned something very, very important that I was concerned about when I was battling the Shadow Queen. Her cutscenes are so long. You gotta sit through Grotus awakening her. You gotta sit through her treading the world into darkness. And then you gotta sit through the crystal stars going to the areas you've been to. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh no, if I game over, I have to sit through all these cutscenes. But thankfully, because of my game over against Lord Crumb, or Magnus von Grapple, so I guess maybe I should be thankful for him game overing me. Basically, when you get a game over, you can skip the cutscene. You can skip the cutscenes once you get the game over on that particular boss. So, technically Magnus von Grapple did me a favor by telling me, hey man, if you game over, you can skip the cutscenes. So yeah, I was very, very nervous. If I game overed on the Shadow Queen, I had to sit through all those cutscenes again. But thankfully, that didn't happen. I finished the game, and I can tell you that I am very happy with how it turned out. I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was great. And I definitely recommend this game to those who are into these kind of games. So that's all I'm going to say. So that is all from me, Patrick Valentine. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all on the other side.